looking at this team, I think it's easy to say IQ is the better option at point guard. And a lot of people are saying that IQ is more of a combo guard, et cetera, et cetera. But forget all that. Is IQ the best in-house option at point guard right now? And the answer is clearly yes. Hey, what's going on? Quis here from Sports Vibes TV. And in this video, I'm going to be giving my post-game analysis of this recent Knicks versus Trailblazers game. Now, unfortunately, the Knicks were handed an L. And, games like this are going to happen. But I'm glad that the team fought back, persevered, and was able to keep the game close and keep the game competitive. I've been saying on this channel time and time again, the Knicks need to continue being competitive in every single game in order for us to see and in order for these players to develop and get better as the season goes along. And I think we've seen evidence of that in this game. Look at Immanuel Quickley. Immanuel Quickley went off. He had 31 points. I got the box score in front of me. He went off for 31 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. He shot 9 of 18 from the field, so 50%. And he shot 5 of 8 from 3. So he shot over 50% from 3. And this is probably the first game we've actually seen Immanuel Quickley be a legitimate gunner from 3. Like, we've heard him, or we know that he has the talent to be a gunner from 3. But we saw a little bit of everything from IQ in this game. We saw dribble pull-ups. We saw him do a little James Harden step back from 3. We saw him on some catch and shoot occasions. So to see Immanuel Quickley perform like this is very encouraging for a Knicks fan. But what is mind-boggling to me is the fact that Tibbs seems married to Elfrid Payton as the starting point guard. And to me, that's going to be a major hindrance to the development of IQ and also to the development and progress of the team as a whole. Elfrid Payton is not cutting it at point guard. And the fact that Tibbs decided to let Payton pretty much play the whole first quarter, in which we dug that hole, and then he had him play pretty much the whole third quarter where, yes, the team was coming back, but I think the offense wouldn't have gotten as stagnant as it did later on in that third quarter if we had IQ in the game. And you saw as soon as he put IQ in the game in that fourth quarter, the team was a lot more explosive, and we were able to chip into that lead a lot more and make it a legitimate, tightly contested game. And I think Tibbs has to stop relying on veterans like an Elfrid Payton when we have quality options in-house on the bench and Immanuel Quickley at point guard. Like, I've been doing film reviews on IQ time and time again, and the way the defense has to react to him is completely different than what the defense has to do when they're guarding Elfrid Payton. Like, IQ can actually hit that corner 3. There was a couple times Elfrid Payton is getting the ball wide open from 3, and he's chucking up bricks. I think they said his 3-point stats on the actual broadcast. He's averaging 28% from 3, and that's not going to cut it in the NBA. So Tibbs has to stop relying so much on Payton and just give IQ a chance. I've been saying that since the preseason started, and when we saw him actually compete on the court and we saw what he was able to do. I've been saying it over and over again. Let's start him and let's see what we can get from him. And another thing with Tibbs that I don't understand is he benched RJ in pretty much the entire fourth quarter. And to me, it made no sense because as Clyde normally says, RJ started percolating towards the end of that third quarter. He had like 2 or 3 buckets getting to the basket and kind of finding his groove, because up until then, I think he had only taken 1 or 2 shots. So he really wasn't being utilized in the offense much. The Blazers were kind of getting him out of his game with that zone. But once we were able to try to cut into that lead, You saw them switch up and play man, and RJ was effective. So why Tibbs decided to go with Austin Rivers? Now, mind you, Austin Rivers did nothing for us, honestly. Let me give you Austin Rivers' stats, even though it's not much. He had 3 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 turnovers, shot 1 for 3 from the field, which was the exact same shooting percentage from 3. So it's not like you were getting an abundance of production from Austin Rivers. So why wasn't RJ out there in those clutch moments? RJ is fresh off a 4-game stint where he's averaged, 19. Well, he's probably averaged like 23 points a game. So why are we now going to turn to an Austin Rivers that is fresh off an Achilles injury? I won't say fresh off an Achilles injury. He had a sore Achilles, and that's why they sat him out. But why are we going to turn to Austin Rivers and ask Austin Rivers to play 29 minutes and RJ Barrett is only going to play 23? Like, Tibbs is killing me with his rotations. And I think this team would have had a much better chance of winning this game if we had RJ out there instead of Austin Rivers. Like, if you look at the minutes that are being divvied up on this team, they're completely out of whack. There's no reason Elfrid Payton and Immanuel Quickley should be averaging the same amount, or not averaging, but they should not have the same amount of minutes if you look at this difference in the level of production. Elfrid Payton went 3 of 8 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw. He had 2 assists and 8 points. Now you're comparing that to Immanuel Quickley that had 31 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. Like, there's no competition. Why was the first player I mentioned, Elfrid Payton, starting and getting the same amount of minutes as somebody that just dropped 31? So I think that's the biggest issue for this team. And, the fact that we were able to keep it close, even with Tibbs using his weird rotations, I think it just shows that the Knicks do have some talent and we do have some competitors on this team. Because think about it. The Knicks should not have been in this game. Damian Lillard was going crazy. Damian Lillard had 14 points in the first quarter. Like, Damian Lillard was killing Payton. And I thought Tibbs didn't want to put IQ in because he was trying to guard him, or he was trying to keep him away from Lillard. So you saw Lillard took a seat in the first quarter, and that's when Tibbs brought in IQ. He brought in IQ. Well, no, Lillard sat in the start the second quarter, and that's when Tibbs brought in IQ for the first time to get some run right around the beginning of the second quarter, end of the first. And at that point, I'm thinking, all right, IQ has not looked that bad defensively for Tibbs to be trying to shield him from these elite guards. Throw him out there and let's see what he can do. So as soon as IQ was out there, IQ was doing a lot. He was out there throwing alley-oops. He was out there, like I said earlier, making 3-point shots. So I think Tibbs should go and make a concerted effort to rearrange this lineup, because we're clearly not getting the level of production that we need from Elfrid Payton. And Alec Burks got the start, and Alec Burks played great. Alec Burks is not somebody that, you're going to be able to rely on for the entirety of the season, because it seems like he's extremely injury prone. But Alec Burks did good. 18 points, 3 steals, 1 assist, 4 rebounds, 6 of 9 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3. And he was out to close the game. But my question is, I think we would have had a much better lineup if Tibbs would have went with IQ at point guard to close the game. At shooting guard, he should have had RJ. At the 3, he should have had Alec Burks. And then at the 4 and the 5, if you want, you would have had Julius Randle and you would have had Mitch. And I think we would have been our chances of actually overtaking the Blazers during that final stretch, I think would have been much better, because RJ would have given you a hell of a lot more than we were receiving from Austin Rivers. And I think, it was just a weird game, because the Knicks are supposed to be, quote unquote, a defensive juggernaut. We're number 1 in the league in defense. But to come out that first quarter, the Blazers punched us in the mouth. And I'm happy that the Knicks were able to withstand that initial flurry and continue to keep themselves in the game. But, the Blazers they shocked me. I wasn't expecting them to come out the way they did. I know they had an extended period of rest, but I thought they were going to be rusty. I mean, Damian Lillard went off. Let's look at Damian Lillard's stats. Damian Lillard went off for 39 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds. He went 11 of 17 from the field, 6 of 10 from 3, and 11-11 from the free throw line. And mind you, when Elfrid Payton was in there guarding him that first quarter, I think Damian Lillard was perfect. Perfect. I think, what was it? He went like 5 of 5 from the field. He went like, I think 3 for 3 from 3. He had some crazy numbers that first quarter. And I'm watching it and I'm like, yo, Elfrid Payton can't stop Lillard. So why can't we just go to IQ and see what he can do? But he went off. And to be honest, IQ was getting cooked a little bit. They had a backup guard out there, Simmons, who was out there doing his thing. He dropped a couple threes in IQ's face. So he was doing decent. He went 16 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 6 to 9 from the field, 4 or 6 from 3-point. So he was the second leading scorer for that team. And just to give you a little bit more Knicks stats, leading scorer was IQ. I gave you his stats. Julius Randle had a decent enough game. He had 25 points, 7 of 18 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3, 10 of 11 from the free throw line, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Mitch also had a decent game, 8 points, 9 rebounds. Not enough, no blocks, no steals, which is unfortunate. You know, he's a defensive nuisance. I mean, he's a nuisance on defense, so you expect to see a little bit more stats-wise when it comes to him defensively. But other than that, we really didn't see much from the team. Like Burks, I already mentioned, 18 points, 6 to 9 from the field. RJ didn't do much. 8 points, 4 of 9 from the field. I mean, in the first half, RJ only took 1 or 2 points. So in the second, 1 or 2 points. He only took 1 or 2 shots. So in the second half, you can pretty much say RJ was 4 of 7. So think about that. RJ was 4 of 7 in the second half, and Tibbs decided to bench him and go with Austin Rivers. That's what's going to drive me crazy this offseason. I mean, not the offseason. That's what's going to drive me crazy this season. Tibbs's rotations, because to me, they make absolutely, no sense. And I know Tibbs has probably forgotten more about basketball than I know currently. But looking at this team, I think it's easy to say IQ is the better option at point guard. And a lot of people are saying that IQ is more of a combo guard, et cetera, et cetera. But forget all that. Is IQ the best in-house option at point guard right now? And the answer is clearly yes. So I don't want to hear that he's a combo guard. He's more of a Lou Will type. When he's out there orchestrating the offense, we look better than we have when we're out there with Payton. So if, he's a Lou Will type, combo guard, et cetera, but look at what we have on this roster. We got to work with what we have. And the best option at point guard right now is unequivocally IQ. So don't sit here and tell me he's not built for that. He's more off ball. To me, I don't want to hear that. You got to work with what you have. And if you look at the options at point guard, you can't give me anyone else that's going to give you a better shot at being competitive and winning games than IQ right now. If you want to say that, if you want to give me that argument next offseason when we're able to bring in other players and maybe then move IQ off ball, then cool. We'll have that discussion in the offseason. But right now, IQ is the best option at point guard and needs to start ASAP. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Once again, I'm Quis, host of Sports Vibes TV, and I'm out.